24. We made our way through the downpour to the Del Rio Theater. When we were seated, I between the two men, I poked Dearser in the ribs. Up and Up said something about rocks in the road? Pay no attention, dear madam. They only roll down when it rains. But by the time we get there, it probably won't be raining. Up and Up talks too much. And anyway, you know how he exaggerates. Exaggerates? What if he did? Just one rock, if it were large enough and hit us just right, would roll the old jalopy off that shelf of a road and into the river. Maybe we'd better stay at the hotel, go home in the morning. Shh, hissed Up and Up. The show's beginning. There's Joe. Be quiet. Silence fell over the crowded little theater. Several dignified, gray-haired men with their wives sat near me in hushed expectancy. I looked about, wondering what it was that made sensible-looking, mature people so absorbed in what was going on up there ahead of us. My eyes followed theirs. Why, this was exciting. This was terrific. I sat forward on the edge of my seat. A few minutes later, I began to splutter hot, incoherent words. Dearser pulled me back. Relax, he said. This is only a picture, you know. It was real once, I snapped back. That man circling around is a panther, a black panther. Oh, he knocked Joe Louis down. 1, 2, 3, he's up. A boy 3 rows behind us cheered. People around me made the air quiver with disapproval of the interruption. Stay hushed, boy. Let the $1 million ringside audience roar for blood. This is not the middle of the 20th century. I felt the mad thirst for carnage that swept the crowds in the Colosseum long ago in Rome. I was on the edge of my chair again. Oh, just like that. That Black Panther's a scamp. He's unbeatable. He's got nice Joe Louis down again. Joe rises. The Panther comes on. He's going to worst that baby-faced colored boy with the pouting lips. Knock the beast down, Joe boy. Again, I felt dear sir's hand on my arm. Be still, dear madam. People are paying more attention to you than the fight. I sank back, ashamed, and not of myself alone, but of all of us, who could be so carried away by an exhibition of brutality. I kept quiet after that. Finally, the picture ended. Women pulled on their wraps. Men got up stiff from sitting so long. Something hammered in my brain. Words from a poem. What was it called now? American Prize Fight. That was it. I'd read it long ago in the Atlantic. Fragments of it came back to me. Let wisdom's muted trumpet once be heard, not idiocy's horn. Quick breath of shame. Now I understood. The writer must have felt the quick breath of shame that had swept over me when I realized how excited I had become. Dear Sir and Up leaned across me and talked in low voices. That man who lives below us on the river just left, Dear Sir said. He'll probably be pulling out soon. We better follow him. He can shove most of the rocks out of the road with that Jeep of his. Okay, let's beat up. Agreed Up. Actually, he said, okay, let's beat it. Agreed Up. We went down the aisle toward the door. Dear Sir's firm hand guiding me through the press. How'd you like it, dear madam? He asked. I hate that Black Panther, I muttered, still in a quiver of excitement. I wish Joe Louis had smashed his face. Dear Sir's grip tightened on my arm. Now, dear madam, Jersey Joe was great. He had the bomber whipped. The decision was a damned shame. It was all a damned shame. I spat out the words. I had sat through a fight, hadn't I? So I could use ringside language if I wanted to, couldn't I? Anyway, I did. Then we were outside. The rain was no more than a light, misty sprinkle. The boys decided it was safe to start home. Dear Sir helped me into the car, which Up and Up had driven close to the curb. I settled myself into the back seat. We drove out of a little hamlet into the blackness of the night. Ahead of us bobbed the taillight of the Jeep. The boys had taken care to pull out just behind it. We had covered perhaps a mile or so of our journey when suddenly the rain began to fall again, so hard that it beat a furious tattoo on the top of the car. The busy windshield wipers swished back and forth without pause. All thoughts of the spectacle I had witnessed in the theater had left my mind. It raced forward to that stretch of road, no more than a narrow shelf that twisted along between the cliff and the river. Up and Up attended strictly to the business of keeping the car in the middle of the muddy road. Once in a while the jalopy slewed sideways with a sickening lurch, but each time Up and Up fought it back until the wheels sank again into the ruts made by the few cars that had passed earlier in the evening. Sometimes we lost sight of the red pinpoint that was the Jeep's tail light as it disappeared around one of the endlessly repeated curves. Then we would see it again. Suddenly, I noticed that both men were leaning forward, peering anxiously into the darkness ahead. "This is it," Dear Sir said in a low voice I knew I was not intended to hear. "I can't see whether there's rocks in the road or not. Drive slow, will you?" "Can't drive any slower and keep up with the Jeep," Up and Up said, "and I sure don't want to get very far behind him in case we get in trouble." At that moment the jalopy hit a rock. It shuddered, bounced out of the ruts, and slithered toward the edge of the road that practically overhung the Klamath River. When the wheels were not more than a foot from the brink, Up and Up wrestled them back again. We crept forward for another 25 yards or so. Then something else happened. We came to a scraping standstill as our front wheels hit a rock the size of a water bucket. Dear Sir wiped the windshield with his fingers and tried to look through the murky glass. I stood up in the back and peered over Up and Up's shoulder. All I could see was a short piece of sodden roadbed, no sign of the Jeep's taillight. Had we lost it for keeps? And now we were halted by this rock. The boys got out into the pouring rain. Tugging, hauling, sliding, and rolling, they worked the boulder to the edge of the road, sent it plunging over the brink. Crashing sounds and a faint splash came to our ears. The boys climbed back in. Before Up and Up could start the car, a small avalanche of mud slid onto the road 10 feet in front of us. "Make a lunge at it," said Dear Sir, "before any more comes down to us to cut us off." The car lurched forward, throwing me back in the seat. There was a bump, and we were through the 2 feet deep pile of mud. We moved forward. "I've lost the Jeep's tail light," said Up and Up. "I just saw the reflection of its headlights on the canyon wall up ahead of us," said Dear Sir. I know I am not a coward, but I have a vivid imagination. In rapid succession, I saw a dozen pictures of things that might happen to us, all terrifying. There was a tenseness in the boys' voices, but they weren't giving the impression of being frightened or even nervous. I get the idea that they were facing the music. Well, I'd try to face it too. "Maybe we better pull up a little closer." I could sense Up and Up's straining eyes and tight-shut lips. He felt the responsibility of getting us over an almost impassable road. I was carrying that responsibility too, backseat driving, I believe it's called, but gave myself the credit that so far I hadn't uttered a sound. "Why not pull into that little cove right ahead?" suggested Dear Sir. "We might wait there until the Jeep's taillight shows up again." Up and Up turned into the cove and stopped. "It'll be safe here, won't it?" I said in a voice that was hard to get out of my throat. "Don't count on it," said Up and Up. "If there should be a cloudburst up in this mountain, and there is plenty of times, a regular wall of water might come down through this cove and wash us into the river." Apparently Dear Sir wasn't listening to him, but giving all his attention to the road ahead. Our ineffectual headlights broke the gloom ahead for about 100 yards. Beyond that stretched impenetrable blackness. Dear Sir spoke suddenly. "There's the tail light. He probably stopped to shove a boulder out of the way." We pulled out of the cove. The road ahead, as far as I could see, was liberally sprinkled with rocks, small ones, fortunately, but there was no telling what minute. At that moment, I lost control of my tongue and my common sense, too, apparently. "Can't we start walking back to Happy Camp?" I asked. "Don't talk about walking on this road," said Dear Sir. "No one could dodge those falling rocks. We're safer where we are." "Yes, until a big one strikes us point blank," Up and Up broke in. "Shut up," said Dear Sir gruffly. "No use scaring dear madam to death. This is a damned bad, but it might be worse." How could it be worse? I only wished the men would pray. God help us would be enough. We came around a point and into a short stretch of almost straight road. The headlights showed glistening rocks that menaced every step of our way. Water poured from the heavens and out of each little crevasse of the mountainside. There was no way of missing the rocks. It was a hard job for Up and Up to ease the wheels safely over and around them, keep them from bouncing the car over the brink and into the river. At last we saw the red taillight of the Jeep bobbing along not far ahead. Then suddenly it was still. We watched for a moment. "Good gosh!" Up and Up cried. "What's that Jeep driver doing, standing in the middle of the road, waving his flashlight?" "He's in trouble, that's what." Both men leapt from the car and started running down the road through the rain. In the mountains, men don't wait to be asked to help. They head right for where they're needed. In a moment, I lost sight of them. The panic that swept over me when I realized I was alone in the car was close to insanity. I stood up, clutched the back of the seat in a spasm of fear. The whole cliff seemed to be dissolving. Rocks slithered across the road in the slimy mud, bounced off the top and hood. I knew for a surety that the next one would strike me on the head. I faced the fact that there was no one to help me. My life was in my own hands, and I wasn't going to let it slip away from me without a struggle. All this took only seconds to happen. I heard myself muttering aloud. Then I knew I was not alone. God was with me. I was talking to Him. Like a flash, a prayer went through my mind as I was struggling to open the car door. It swung open and I fell to the ground. Scrambling up, I ran down the road, keeping as close to the cliff as possible. A rock as large as a tiny balloon hurtled into the road directly in front of me. I stumbled over it, struggled up, kept running. I had gone only a little way when I heard the men yelling at me. Then I lost my footing and sank in a heap on the road. "Go back! Go back!" they were shouting. "You'll be killed!" They reached me, breathless, jerked me to my feet, dragged me into the car, and shoved me into the back seat. "What in God's name made you do that?" Up and Up's voice shook. I didn't have breath enough to explain. "Drive as fast as you dare," said Dear Sir. "If we can get by that next point before another boulder decides to land on the road." "The Jeep!" I gasped. "What happened?" "A boulder half as big as this car landed in the road in front of it," Dear Sir explained. "It took all three of us to pry it over the bank. There were several crowbars in the Jeep, or we never could have done it." We crept slowly forward. "Dear Sir," I said hesitantly, wouldn't you say the rain is slackening?" "I'm sure it is," he said. "It would, now that we're just about over that cliff road." A few minutes more, and we were off that dangerous stretch. The red taillight of the Jeep winked out of sight as the driver picked up speed. The road was muddy, of course, but there were no more rocks on it. 20 minutes later, Up and Up stopped the car at the foot of my trail. The storm had passed on and no water was falling, except from the dripping trees. The boys helped me up to my cabin. We went inside, where Vicky greeted us with exuberant joy. Dear Sir built a fire in the stove, and we peeled off our sodden outer garments. In a few minutes we were drinking hot coffee, not talking much. We had been through too much in too short a time. Death had crowded us. After a while the men got up to go. Dear Sir paused in the doorway. "Dear madam," he said, "I hope you are none the worse for wear." "Dear madam," he said, "I hope you are none the worse for it. Up and I have got used to looking out for you, and please, take good care of yourself." Up and Up, loquacious once more, broke in. We pulled you through this knothole pretty good. You've been here close to 8 months now. Been pretty rough sledding part of the time, but you're improving. It would have been awful if we'd let you kick off tonight. I'm tough, boys. Not tough enough, said Dear Sir, smiling a little. I think you need us, and we need, well, a responsibility. Good luck and good night. I sat at the table a long time after they had gone, drinking another cup of coffee. In the last 2 hours, I had passed through the most terrifying experience of my life. It wasn't luck that saved me. It was God.